Welcome to my mini tutorial on how to draw a cat's eyes in colored pencil. Today we're going to be looking at this portrait of Ben the black cat. And obviously he's not finished yet. The only parts of it that's really done is the eyes, but that's what we're going to be looking at today. I will be doing a mini tutorial later on black fur, and I'll be using this portrait as well, so keep an eye out for that. So in my opinion, the eyes are really the most important part of a portrait. You can get away with a lot in a portrait if you can really nail down the eyes. The eyes show most of the expression. They kind of, if you can get them right, they really bring the portrait to life. So I want to focus on that and how to make, the best eyes that you can. So first I want to talk about the materials I use. And I primarily use Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils. I find they're not, super expensive, and they are very reliable pencils. They can sharpen to nice points. They blend well. They come in a large variety of colors that are also light fast. So that's what I use. You can use whatever pencils you're comfortable with, but that's what I used for this tutorial. And the other thing to keep in mind with eyes is even though the eyes in Ben's portrait look fairly just yellow, I did use a large number of colors to create them. So, I did use a cream and a yellow for the main base, but I also used 3 different shades of brown to get kind of the dark tones and some of the shading in. I added in some green. The particular reference I'm using for Ben's portrait doesn't show a whole lot of green, but looking at other pictures of him, he does have green in his eyes, so I added this in to, again, bring that in and make the eyes more lifelike. The reference I'm working from is not a particularly good reference, so I think there is green in there, it just didn't show up. And I also used 2 shades of blue for the pupils and the reflections in the eyes. It's very rare that black in any portrait is just black. There's usually layers of color in there. So in this case it was blue. And then I have my grays, warm gray and cold gray and black to shade the eyes. So those are the pencils I used, and now I'm going to show you how I built up the layers. Thanks for watching.
So as you can see, I had already kind of put in the very base layer of the eyes, and I tend to always kind of spend the first layer of a portrait just basically laying out the shapes and the very, very basic details and shading. So mainly I just had put in yellow and the pupils. There wasn't much more I did with those that first layer of the eyes. So when I start my second layer, I usually come in with what I consider to be the lightest base color that exists in that section of the portrait. So in this case, it's a very light ivory. And now I'm going over it with a cream to start to add some more color and depth. And then I come in with green and add in those highlights on the eyes, like I talked about in the intro. It's very subtle, but it adds in those layers of color are what really build up a realistic looking eye. No eye is just one color. So for the darker parts, I'm using browns, and I think I used 3 different browns and sort of shading those. Eyes are usually darker around the edges and then right around the pupils. So sort of learning and studying different eyes will sort of help you figure that out. And then you'll see I came back with the light cream there, and that was kind of what I used as a blender. So once I had all the different layers of color on, then I came in with the cream and just kind of blended everything together. And then I'm coming in with my warm gray to add in some of those shadows. And the eyes are starting to come together a bit now. They still don't have the sort of depth that I'm really looking for. And right now I'm just building up layers. So you'll see me go back and forth between each eye. You'll see me switch back to pencils that I have put down. And again, just building up those layers is so important. So here I'm starting to come in with the darker colors, black, browns, blues, to really start to bring out a depth of color and darken and deepen the eyes. This is really where depth starts to come in, and where you really want to have sharp points on your pencil and press harder so that you can get that deep, rich color. You can't be afraid of color, and it took me a long time to realize that. And the less fear you have of color, the more you're going to add beautiful colors to your portraits and bring them to life. So we're adding shading here, trying to deepen it and really add. And you can see as I'm doing this, the eye starts to look more round. Eyes are round, and that's important to remember. So when you start to add in shading, that's when you get that nice roundness. At this point, I realized, as you probably have, that the two eyes do not match. So one of them is quite a bit squinted to the other, and it makes the cat look like he's making a bit of a funny face. So all that beautiful shading I did, I then promptly erased and started building up a bit of a wider eye. And that's okay, you're going to make mistakes, I make mistakes. Colored pencils don't erase completely, so you have to be a little bit careful, but they will erase and you can redo it to a certain extent. So I've just widened that eye a little bit, and you'll see later I do some adjustments on the other eye because they're still not quite the right size for one another. So here, coming to the other eye, I'm going to start darkening and deepening that. And then I noticed some things in the other eye that I can add more browns and colors. And I do this a lot in portraits. I jump back and forth. If I see something that I notice, I'll go back to it. And oftentimes you'll see that because when you leave it for even just a minute or so, you'll look back and go, oh wait, there is some more brown there, or it does need to be a little bit darker. So, you know, you work the way you would like to work. Some people completely finish a portion of a drawing before they go on to the next part. I tend to hop around. And what you'll see me doing here is I usually measure out sort of reference points on the image. So in this particular one, the bottom of the left eye actually lines up a straight line to the bottom of the pupil in the right eye. So that's what I'm doing with my pencils there, is I'm kind of just using them as a straight line so I can figure out where that bottom of the left eye is supposed to go and where the top is supposed to go. And that's, again, I'm erasing and sort of rebuilding the eye a little bit to make it match with the eye on the right. And that's one of my techniques to sort of try and get things more accurate. And there's my fingers as well. I like to measure, okay, the width of this part goes to, you know, I don't know exactly what it was in this drawing anymore, but the width of the left eye goes to the pupil and the corner of the right eye. So you'll see me doing a lot of that kind of measuring throughout my drawings, and that's just how I reference drawings, sort of sizes and proportions like that a lot. It's just one of the tools I use to try and keep things accurate. Now we're just finishing up the left eye now, finally going in with some of the darker lines, erasing them and going back over it, adding in those nice browns. Shadows, again, are very, very rarely just gray or black. They have layers of color, so I'm coming in adding some darker green shadows, some blacks, and some browns. So this is a close-up of the finished eyes, and you can see the various layers of color in there. There's the yellows, the greens, the browns, and really the eyes stand out. And I probably will go over them right at the end of the portrait just to make sure I haven't missed anything. It's always good to kind of step away from a portrait for an hour or days even, and then come back and go, yes, I really like the way those look, or, they could look a little bit better. But that's how I build up eyes in a portrait. I hope you learned something, and thank you very much for watching.